because it isn't about United States and Russia. That's about United States and Iran. That's to help us so that we don't get hit by Iran. And it would be helpful to you guys, because even though Russia does supply, is supplying some of the, which I'm going to ask why they're supplying to Iran at the point, but I think knowing Iran, they're going to come back and hit Russia. I mean, you should be happy the United States is protecting Russia at the same time they're helping Poland as well.
I can address those issues.
Yes.
I can address those both issues. First thing, you did say that those anti-missile radar systems, they are intended primarily to protect Western Europe from missile launches from Iran or Northern Korea.
Exactly.
But Russian people just don't believe that. They don't believe that. You have to prove this to the Russians.
How can we prove
Why doesn't the government let the people know? Because the Russian military understands that our missile defenses are completely ineffective against ICBMs on the Russian side.
And this is why about a year ago, the Russian president suggested that such a system should be installed within the close proximity to Iranian borders. Like, for example, on the territory of Azerbaijan, because Russians, they have the radar station positions in Azerbaijan, and actually the Azerbaijani president was very much supportive of this idea. And I remember when Putin mentioned that, the U.S. president, which was George W. Bush, he said, we would consider this.
We have no objection to that. That is a very good suggestion. But there is an issue. I think one of the factors here is a good old-fashioned payoff. If the Russian people are paranoid about it, the Russian government is going to play off of those fears and say, we oppose it until you give us what we want. Because the military knows that our missile defense system is not even close to being able to counter thousands of missiles from the Russians, which are very, very fast, very long range. I mean, we just don't have a defense, which is not a great thing because we're at the mercy of whoever takes control over Russia. But we want to at least be able to protect against the terrorist regime in Iran and our allies.
Yeah, I don't understand.
And I need to address this issue of Iranian cooperation with the Russians.
Yeah, why is Russia selling military nuclear devices to Iran?
You're still using the incorrect statements.
Okay.
It's never been this way, never ever. And so the Russian government has just said that many times, that Russian government, Russia is not going to supply Iranian regime with nuclear weaponry. Absolutely no way. So what's actually happened, I can explain. Between the years of 1990 and 2000, 10 years of perestroika and the beginning of democracy after the breakup of the Soviet Union, the entire industries in Russia were in decline. With the introduction of capitalism, there was a very bad situation for the Russian economy under Yeltsin. So Russian atomic industry was actually saved due to the contracts with the Iranian government, because within that period of time, those contracts supplied more than 300,000 jobs to Russian specialists and nuclear scientists.
Right. Now, we also gave business to Russian nuclear engineers, and probably we should expand it, but we did give a lot of money, for example, for the decommissioning of old nuclear weapons to make sure that didn't fall within the wrong hands.
Michael, at that time, Iran was not a threat to us when they were doing
that. No, Iran's had a nuclear program since the Shah, by the way.
But, but now it's very
threatening. The Russians are building, though, to produce plutonium.
The man that's new president
the bigger
is very
issue
threatening.
Is the Khomeini's been in power since
Iranian
1976.
nuclear program actually was started before the revolution of 1979.
But the the anti-aircraft system that the Russians are threatening to sell to Iran and even Syria poses a great threat to American planes and Israeli planes. And that's a big problem if they sell, I believe it's the S-300 system. That would shoot down American planes if we ended up at war with Iran. And given that their mantra is death to America, death to Israel, it's not a completely unlikely scenario.
Okay,
Yeah,
I think what we need to do is find a comprehensive diplomatic solution to the Iranian problem, and we need Russian support on this. I mean, you're correct. They have the negotiated contracts with Iran, but that's when Iran wasn't as threatening as it is now.
And it's not just their concerns, by the way.
How can you help us with Iran and with Afghanistan? What is Russia going to do to help
with
the United
Iran? With Iran, if as far as I remember, Russian President Vladimir Putin and the Russian leadership, they stated many times that they would make Iranian President Ahmadinejad fulfill the provisions of an agreement made at the United Nations. So they would make him fulfill this agreement, and under no circumstances the Russian government would provide the Iranians with plutonium, which is actually used to build nuclear missiles. And as for the peaceful atomic program, there are huge contracts, especially this contract to build the atomic station in Bushehr. Actually, the Iranian government pays up to $25 million per month to the Russians for the works that they do on the construction of this nuclear station.
Now, the Russians keep threatening to veto anti-Iranian sanctions acts in the UN. It is a struggle to get them. I'd like to point out that the Saudis are very, very concerned, in particular about Iran. Less vocal other Arab governments, but the Saudis are very, very concerned. And in Afghanistan, of course, the Russians have promised, we'll see how long this holds up, to give us an air corridor to supply our troops in Afghanistan. That will be very important and helpful, but we have to hope that that's not taken back.
With Afghanistan, I think the Russian government is very much interested in furthering cooperation with the United States, because in Russia there's a huge problem, drug problem, heroin problem, and most of those drugs actually are being supplied by Afghani drug dealers.
Right.
That's a major problem, so we would need to work all together, because it's a major...
Right, we need to, I mean, more unites us than divides us, and I think it's become very clear the help of Russia is needed, especially in approaching stability. If stability is going to have a chance, not only in Iraq, but also in Afghanistan and Pakistan, and we need your help.
Russia's had difficult relations with Pakistan. I mean, we have a complicated relationship ourselves with Pakistan because the government's complicated, but Pakistan historically was an enemy of Russia. We were a Cold War ally of Pakistan. Now the United States has good relations with India too. So, I mean, it's a little bit difficult thing to maneuver, and I wonder if the Russians can kind of do the difficult balancing thing is, yes, the United States doesn't agree with some stuff that happens in Pakistan either, but if Russia views Pakistan as an enemy, that could further complicate things, because Pakistan, we're trying to get them to help us with fighting the Taliban, who actually the Pakistanis unfortunately did support. So I don't know. I mean, the relationship between Pakistan and Russia, and Russia's relations with many people in Afghanistan is difficult and challenged because of Russian invasion.
Guys, we have to close. I can't believe my credits are going down. I want to thank both of you very much. Look, they're shaking hands. Here's the United States, and here's Michael Santo, and Sergei Isakov. And I want to thank them so much for coming. And hopefully, you guys, we're only part way through. We are going to solve today, and maybe we won't be able to solve today, but we got a little bit closer to the Russian-American problem. And I think, again, I want to say that more unites us than divides us. We would like Russia to come and give us a hand, because I think that we can work together.
And then there'll be round two of the discussion. Round two.
It'll be a round two.
It's happening now, by the way, in terms of economics, with the presence of all major U.S. corporations on the Russian market. So we're on the way.
And
I agree.
And we have a
Russia.
lot of American industries going into Russia right now. We know McDonald's is going in, has been in.
Russia's not totally stable.
PepsiCo just announced to invest $1 billion.
Russia's not entirely a stable environment.
We're trying to Americanize the Russians right now.
Yeah, but it's very lucrative for the U.S. businesses anyway.
But anyway, I think we can't solve the world's problems today, but that's why these shows this is for you, and this is why we think it's very important that we have dialogue. And that's why I brought the Russians and the United States along to dialogue. I think that's where it's at, in dialogue. It isn't about fighting, it's about dialoguing and talking to each other.